The United Nations Conference on Climate Change, COP29, opened in Baku, Azerbaijan, to address the climate crisis and agree on measures to combat rising global temperatures. Iran has called for the expulsion of Israel from the United Nations organization. And in Russia, the Kremlin government denied on a Monday reports that claimed that the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump urged Russian President Putin not to escalate the conflict in Ukraine. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the TeleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. The United Nations Conference on Climate Change, the COP29, opened in Baku, Azerbaijan, to address the climate crisis and agree on measures to combat rising global temperatures. At the opening of the event, COP29's President Mubarak warned that the climate crisis is not a future problem but a present one, as he reflected on recent natural disasters. The official stressed that the summit aims to agree on a new climate finance target to ensure that all countries have the necessary means to adopt much stronger climate measures. He also reiterated that the UN has called for urgent collective action led by the G20 group to reduce extreme weather events.
But we need much more from all of you. When I want to be crystal clear about our expectations. Our plan is based on two pillars: to enhance ambition and enable action. This means setting out clear climate plans and delivering the finance we need. These two pillars are mutually reinforcing, each sending a strong signal to the other. Because as we mobilize climate finance, we allow for higher ambitions. And as we signal together higher ambition, we build trust to unlock greater financial commitments. Dear colleagues, to enable action, the COP29 presidency's top priority is to agree a fair and ambitious new collective quantified goal on climate finance.
And the head of Cuba's National Seismological Service, Enrique Arango, described as moderately strong the earthquakes that occurred on Sunday in the central eastern region of this country. During a meeting with the first secretary of the Provincial Committee of Santiago de Cuba, Beatriz Johnson, the specialist detailed that most important earthquakes occurred 48 kilometers southeast of Pilon in Granma province. The first one, a magnitude of 6 on the Richter scale, and the main one of magnitude 6.7. Although the affectations are not considerable in some territories of Granma, there were landslides and partial damages in residential buildings. According to Arango, aftershocks of lesser magnitude will continue throughout Monday, so the population must take necessary measures. And Cuba continues recovering after the passage of Hurricane Rafael and the two earthquakes that shook the center and east of the Caribbean island on Sunday. With more details, let's update and listen to our correspondent in Havana, Fabiola Lopez.
Hello, how are you? A pleasure to greet you from Havana. Cuba continues with the recovery efforts after the passage of Hurricane Rafael 5 days ago. Already this Monday, teaching activities were resumed throughout the country, as President Miguel DiazCanel informed in his X account, adding that classes could be resumed in most of the Cuban schools and universities that had to close their doors due to the passage of the hurricanes. The president thanked the teachers, workers, families, and students who joined the recovery works. Of course, in the province, when there are still more difficulties, classes will be resumed gradually as the situation normalizes. At the moment, the priority is to increase electricity coverage in Artemisa and to reach Pinar del Rio. These are the most affected provinces. Havana is already at 95.6% electricity coverage. Mayabeque is at 89.7%, while Artemisa is only 1.48%. These are the provinces that suffer the greatest damage from the hurricane. In Artemisa, there are 135 megawatts affected. It is the province with the greatest damage to service, Havana with 100 megawatts affected and Mayabeque with 21 megawatts affected. In Havana, progress in recovery is being checked. There are also 39 hospitals and 9 water supply sources offering service, and the authorities continue to check on the progress of the recovery. The support of the contingents of Linemen from Granma, Holguín, Las Tunas, Santi Espíritus, Camagüey, Matanzas, and Santiago de Cuba is maintained. It was also reported that a brigade from the Isla de la Juventud was on its way to Havana to also support the recovery. On the other hand, the Central Eastern region remains attentive to the seismic situation. Authorities have been calling on the population to keep informed through the official media after the two strong earthquake of magnitude 6 and 6.7 that shocked the eastern region of the country on Sunday, affecting more than 14,000 customers who were left without electricity in Granma. The Granma Electric Company was reporting damages in the infrastructure as a consequence of the earthquakes. It was reported that 2 brigades of the Granma Electric Company were working until around 5 a.m. to provide service to the D33 key big line in the municipality of Pilon, which is the most affected region where the 2 earthquakes took place. Now, it has been possible to provide services to the substation of Sevilla and thus provide electricity to more than 2,500 customers. And for today, it has been said that the priority is to give service to the remaining substation. On the other hand, the Ministry for Public Health, José Ángel Portal, has assured that the protocols established for cases of earthquakes are being complied with and assured that the Ministry of Public Health is evaluating the aid that might be necessary in the affected provinces in accordance with the plans foreseen for this type of natural phenomena. Well, in general, we are working on the recovery and we also working to restore the damages caused by the 2 earthquakes that took place over the weekend. Fortunately, no deaths or missing persons have been reported in either of these 2 contingencies.
And we continue in Cuba as recovery efforts ensure that the passage of Hurricane Rafael. President Miguel DiazCanel reiterated the importance of guaranteeing all services to the population. DiazCanel also recognized the extraordinary efforts of all the workers involved in this recovery process. Let's listen.
The most important thing now is to try to conclude the cleanup of each of the affected places and to focus on water and electricity, which are the things that are hitting us the hardest now and are beginning to be critical, as there are people who have been without water nor electricity for 4 days. I believe that a lot of work has been done in these days, but the hurricane undoubtedly left these severe affectations, and what we have to see is how to mitigate them, knowing there are places where the electric service cannot be supplied still, how we are going to mitigate this situation, especially by finding other means to supply water to that population.
And now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. army has deployed artillery shelling and quadcopter drones to target the main entrance of the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza. Amid the ongoing siege, 3 Palestinians have been injured, according to preliminary reports by the hospital. Meanwhile, the Israeli military is also targeting high-rising buildings overlooking the Netzarim corridor, a 4-mile-long road just south of Gaza City that stretches from the Israeli border to the Mediterranean Sea. The Zionist regime has been expanding the corridor, which covers 58 square kilometers and has now heavy military presence, raising concerns among Palestinians over a prolonged occupier presence in Gaza. And the Israeli army spokesperson Avichai Andre has issued forced evacuation orders for southern Lebanon, saying the population must move north of the Awali River. The order was addressed to over 20 towns, including Markava and Bani Hayyan, all localities where Israeli military would be acting with force. In this context, at least 3 people have been killed in an air raid on Lebanon's town of Srifa and in the Tyre Governorate, according to reports from the national news agency. The Israeli army continues its offensive in southern Lebanon, hitting also the outskirts of the Rashidiyeh refugee camp south of Tyre, as well as nearby towns and the Batulieh plains. Also in this context, the legal team of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu again asked the Jerusalem court for a delay of more than 2 months to his testimony in the corruption trial that has been open against him since 2020. Precisely, Netanyahu's lawyer claimed that the request is due to security incidents, in addition to giving the defense more time to adequately prepare for his testimony and not to harm the public interest. This is not the first time that the Prime Minister's legal representatives have requested an extension. Since last July, they had asked to push the date to March of 2025. Netanyahu has been charged with fraud, bribery, and abuse of trust in 3 separate corruption cases since 2019. If convicted with a final sentence, he would have to leave office. The Palestinian Islamic resistance Hamas issued a strong message to the meeting of the Islamic Operation Organization taking place in Saudi Arabia on Monday to stop Israel's genocidal operation against Gaza and Lebanon. Hamas called for an immediate halt to all normalization treaties with the Zionist entity and affirmed that those who have cooperated with the regime are stained with the blood of thousands of women and children. They also demanded that a union be formed to break the Zionist blockade against Gaza and empower the Palestinian people and their rights. The claim is made while the Arab Islamic Summit kicks off in the Saudi capital of Riyadh to address the cessation of the Israeli aggression in the Palestinian territories and Lebanon. And Iran has called for the expulsion of Israel from the United Nations, stating it has become the greatest threat to the legitimacy of the diplomatic body. The Persian nation's Deputy Foreign Minister for Legal and International Affairs, Qassem Gharibabadi, drew up a detailed list of the Zionist government's attacks against the organization, ranging from the declaration of its Secretary General as persona non grata to deliberate assassination of hundreds of its workers. For the Iranian Authority, the country that has expelled the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees disregarded the ruling of the International Court of Justice and attacked the peace mission in Lebanon, has breached Article 2 of the UN Charter and should no longer remain a member of the entity. And in Saudi Arabia, Muslim and Arab leaders meet on Monday for the second emergency summit to discuss the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. With a focus on Israel's aggressions against Palestine and Lebanon, the joint summit of the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation seeks to stop the attacks, protect civilians, and provide support to the Palestinian and Lebanese people, as well as to put pressure on the international community to take decisive actions to establish peace in the region. The event aims at creating a roadmap to ultimately reach a ceasefire between the Hamas resistance and Israeli forces. And now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Law enforcement officials in Alabama in the southeastern United States reported on Sunday a shooting at the Tuskegee University that left one person dead. The authorities detailed that 16 other people were also injured. During preliminary investigation, it was learned that the victim was an 18-year-old male who was not a member of the university community. Police also confirmed that the arrest of a 25-year-old citizen identified as Shah Mirik, who was carrying a pistol adapted as a machine gun. According to the gun violence file, the incident became the 456th mass shooting in the country in this year. In this context, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump continues to make several key administration appointments ahead of his new term in office. Precisely, Trump named Congresswoman Elise Stefanik as ambassador to the United Nations. The Republican said that he picked Stefanik, a longtime ally, because she is an incredible, strong, tough, and smart America First fighter. For her part, Stefanik confirmed her acceptance of the role in a statement to the New York Post, saying she was ready to advance Trump's proposals through strong leadership. And in Russia, the Kremlin government denied on Monday reports that claimed that U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has spoken with Russian President Vladimir Putin, where Trump had allegedly urged Putin not to escalate the conflict in Ukraine. Casting the media reports as pure fiction, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the report was completely untrue, fake news, and the most obvious example of the quality of information that is being published nowadays. Asked if Putin had plans for any contacts with Trump, the Russian government spokesman insisted that there are no concrete plans yet. In other news, Ecuador's Vice President Veronica Abad announced on Sunday President Daniel Novoa as the ringleader of an alleged coup d'etat already underway. The Vice President, who has been a delegate to international missions since her election and is currently facing a severe sanction from the Ministry of Labor, addressed the country in the evening hours. She assured that the President, in complicity with some parliamentarians and members of the executive, intends to disqualify her from assuming the presidency when he begins his campaign for re-election. In the words of the Vice President, Novoa, who was her running mate, has already prepared the rupture of the constitutional order in Ecuador.
With the sole purpose of stopping me from assuming the presidency of the Republic when the president and candidate enters into his campaign, in which he has been openly involved since the beginning of his government. Using arguments typical of a dictatorship, President Noboa, together with his ministers, have prepared, in an organized manner, the rupture of the constitutional order and the evident coup d'état that is being prepared for January 6, 2025, to take the presidential succession and pretend to assure, in this way, his re-election.
On his part, President Daniel Novoa appointed this Monday Sairia Moya as Vice President of the Republic after the sanction of the Ministry of Labor to Veronica Abad. The presidency pointed out that the official has demonstrated an exemplary career in public service with a solid background in public management and a deep commitment to the welfare of all Ecuadorians. Meanwhile, Abad affirmed that the government suspended her with arguments typical of a dictatorship in order to take the presidential succession and ensure her re-election. We go now to Mexico, as on Sunday, the capital city Zócalo Square was dressed up to host more than 1,000 mariachis playing in unison, achieving a new world record for the country. The performance was part of the closing act of a 5-day event featuring daily concerts and open-air performances to celebrate the traditional Mexican music. Emblematic songs such as Cielito Lindo, El Son de la Negra, and El Rey were played at the famous venue, offering a unique moment for spectators. In total, 1,222 mariachis from all Mexican states came together to take on the challenge. In this regard, participants, musicians, assured that the new record shows the world the pride that the North American country feels for its culture. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.